Welcome to the 2021 Water Research Prize, supported once again by Grower. I've already introduced Jeremy Melvin, curator at WAF, who was one of the judges for the prize this year. And I'd also like to introduce and thank for their support Patrick Speck, leader at Lixil Global Design, and Stefan Schmid, a leader business unit projects at Lixil. And as you probably know, Lixil is Grower's parent company, so they're flying the Grower flag today. Now, this prize was launched in 2018, and we're going to have a brief look and say a few words about past winners. So let's kick off with the 2018 winner. If we can have the slide up, please. Yeah, and here we are. So we were in South America for this particular award. We've got a couple of images of the winning project, and then we've got a short video which explains what it was all about, and then we'll have a brief discussion about it. Let's see the images. Believe it or not, there's a shortage of water in parts of the Amazon rainforest, and this project was all about relieving that condition. I think it was a great project, and I think it came as a surprise to many of us that you could possibly have a shortage of water in a rainforest. Jeremy, was it a surprise to you as it was to me?
Yes, I mean, obviously, intuitively, one thinks a rainforest about rain and that there's plenty of water. But of course, what this suggests is that good water needs to be in the right place, and bad water is water which is out of place. When you have a flood, you have water in the wrong place. And a lot of what this prize is about is how water can be cleaned, monitored, and effectively distributed. It's not that there's a shortage of water as such, there's a shortage of good, clean water in the right place. And that's, I think, what this project was about. And it's very nice to see that little video, something actually being built.
And Patrick Speck, I mean, the business of the supply of clean water, it has been a big concern for Grower over the years, not just in a bathroom context, though that of course is a primary business consideration, but Grower does have a social agenda.
Absolutely, Paul. And I think this is what we just were able to see here in the project with Peru. I think as Jeremy just pointed out, so the abundance of water versus like the water distribution. So abundance of water doesn't mean that water it's reaching people's houses in the best possible way. And I think that definitely there's a connection with pretty much what we do, because through Grower, through our products, we basically touch billions of people's lives every day through our products, right? Because our products, in the end of the day, they are the vehicles to allow people to have access to water, right? But again, unfortunately, it's a scarce resource. Sometimes you don't have it, and sometimes, again, you don't have the access to it. So you don't have the even distribution that, again, it kind of tackles loads of other problems here. And I think it definitely brings us what we say it's a big responsibility. And I think it directly reflects the way that we do and how we do it. And of course, that kind of connects 100% with the values of the company. Again, the pure joy of water, right? So again, our brand ethos, like the pure Freude am Wasser in Germany, but also with our mothership company, our mother company Lexo, also that we have again a big agenda of like social responsibility is again bringing sanitation to loads of people through, I would say, kind of a beautiful social programs and also such as kind of a programs that we did together with the United Nations, but also products such as our Sato toilets that again we're kind of bringing affordable sanitation to people, right?
Thank you very much. Stefan, I'm going to ask you to make a comment on the next winner, actually, because let's move to the winner of the 2019 prize. Again, this was South America, a different sort of project, and I think we've got 3 images of the winning one. So let's see the first image. And this was like the first one, a rather simple project and a small-scale project, but nevertheless with quite big implications for the local community. And the next image. And this was it in use. And the next one. And there's some drawings, again, showing a certain affinity with that first winner from 2018. So, Stefan, it's an interesting observation that actually a very large company can also be very interested in a small scale. And I suppose you might say that actually the scale of your own products in their domestic situations are an example of a sort of parallel situation, the small and the large.
No, thanks. It's actually true that I think it's for us, for Grower Lixil as such, and I think also Patrick formulated that very well, how water is important. And I think also here with that project that we supported there in Brazil, it was also the link between school children, educating them about water, educating them about the precious source that is there. And also there is not really a topic of water city. It's more a topic of how do you manage actually too much water, coming to the point of having with our products, or also what we give basically to these winners here. For us, it's always important that there is a clear link between architectural structures that we have there, that there's a clear link to water, that there's a clear link to ethics, to education, and I think that's an excellent project here that we chose in 2019.
And Jeremy, I suppose in the context of what we've all experienced across the globe in relation to the pandemic, the importance of clean water really can't be overemphasized.
I think it's not just the pandemic. Indeed, one can see many of the origins of modern town planning being in water supply, clean water, taking sewage away. Certainly in London, where we're speaking from, that is the origins of citywide government, at least, are in water management. And I think that's true of all sorts of disease control, but not just disease control. That is about removing the negative. It's also about adding the positive, and I think some cities, particularly European cities, possibly those with slightly more pleasant climates than London, have been very good at introducing water as a social element. I remember a park I saw in Valencia a few years ago, where there's a big, not quite a lake, but a shallow pond, which brings relief from the heat of southern Spain.
I think it's worth saying that both the South American winning examples were concerned with recycling, and also to an extent rediscovering or re-acknowledging existing ways of collecting and harvesting water, which for whatever reason have been rather lost sight of in recent decades. And that notion of actually understanding how water distribution worked historically has been a theme of many of the entries over the years for this prize. And we've seen examples of that, for example, in India, where rather than treating water as a threat, as it might be considered during monsoon times, it's considered as an asset. The question is how you garner it and gather it in and nurture it to turn it to productive use. So I think we've got four images. There they were of the Greek team, and let's see the first of the four images. So Athens, very, very hot climate, obviously water in relatively short supply. And the next one. And this project was to do with this harvesting of water and doing something productive with something which otherwise might have been wasted. And the next one. And the next one. And I think you can see from that this is about as far removed from the South American Amazon or remote parts of Brazil as can be imagined. But I think that the sensibility of the winners was in a sense very similar. And Patrick, I think that what we notice when we look at the entries for this is, however different the projects are, they actually have the designers seem to have quite a lot in common in their approach to this vital life ingredient.
Yeah. This one in particular, I remember us having the conversation during the judging process. That it's also one thing that I have always to point out here, because as we have like again kind of a multitude of entries and tackling completely different perspectives from let's say the water from the water kind of a subject itself, right? That always kind of brings us into again a very kind of a difficult position for us to kind of pick up one or another. And as opposed as the first two, as you mentioned, that they had that very much of a community or an educational purpose. This third one has actually go into fulfill something that again is one of the macro trends that we've been also tackling together with sustainability. Is about urbanization, right? So it's something really connected into urban, very urban dense areas, and how can we in a situation like that utilize water as a very kind of a very simple principle in order to bring like thermal comfort, in order to bring something that are going to make people's lives in a slightly better way. And the point that we found out there was also from a perspective of a facade of a product. So it had, I would say, such a potential for us both to scale it in terms of like to replicate this, and also turn that into a proper feature of a facade of the building. So it was a mix between a good architecture and also a good product design. And I think this is what really kind of caught our attention during last year's jury.
And Stefan, I guess that this relationship between ideas and who knows exactly where they're going to come from or why they're going to emerge in the way they do has been part of the thinking at Grower. I mean, of course it's a manufacturing company, but actually design and the ideas behind designs is very much part of the company ethos.
Yes, that's definitely correct. That I think we have, and I would say Patrick can even tell more about the DNA that we have in our designs, and which is really key. That's why that project was very appealing to us then, because it has an outside design. It plays with the designs you have. So from our perspective, that was then actually a very good pick. So that's basically from my perspective, and also modular. I think modular systems, what we also see trends clearly, modular building, prefabrication. These trends are coming also more and more, be it in renovation, be it in new build. So that project also captured not just from a design, but also from a technology perspective, a lot of interesting touch points.
Thank you very much. Well, I think that's a good lead-in for the introduction to the 2021 winners. Now, the names of the research team that submitted the proposal, and you'll have to excuse me because the chances of me pronouncing all these names correctly are remote, but I'll do my best. Zara Shizadian, Kiyavosh Azizkhani, Mariam Shaheen, and Matab Saedi. We've got the winning team. Congratulations to you in the virtual studio. And I'm now going to invite you to present your project, tell us all about it, and then we'll have a discussion with you and the judges about this project and perhaps some of the wider issues that are affecting the supply of water today. So congratulations, and over to you.
Hello everyone. First, we want to express our gratitude for this wonderful award. It's an honor to be chosen as the selected project. I will start representing the project now. Water is life's matter and matrix, mother and medium. There is no life without water. What makes Earth the perfect place for life? Well, if I ask you to visualize planet Earth right now, you would probably imagine a giant blue bubble with some green spots here and there. This is because more than 70% of its surface is covered up by water. And yet, we come across massive dry lands which seem to be hardly habitable for humans. Also, other issues like the ever-growing water scarcity, drought, desertification, and forced migrations have made many areas face water-related problems. So, what raised our curiosity is that if these places are indeed as unlivable as we imagine them to be, how is it that scientists have managed to find so many varieties of native plants and animals? Perhaps there is a widely neglected water resource out there which we are yet to fully understand. Biomimicry research on passive water harvesting by desert flora and fauna that many of these creatures can collect water from mist and air moisture thanks to their iconic body shapes and surfaces. Take the cactus, for example. Water droplets collect and grow on the tips of the small barbs and move down onto the spine towards the roots. So, by understanding the mechanism they employ to answer their demand for water, which mostly happens through their skin, we may be able to design skin-like surfaces for the same purpose. Clothing, camping tents, water collecting vessels, and even a building facade. Motivated by an old Persian saying, "Drop by drop, a sea will build up," our purpose in this research was to come up with a knowledge-based bioarchitectural method to collect and use water from the air around us. To design such a bio-inspired facade, we faced 4 key problems and questions. How can air moisture be collected? How can we control and guide it? how is it stored, and how is it managed and used. In our studies on the subject, we came to know the Stenocara gracilipes, also known as the Namib beetle, a species native to the Namib Desert in southern Africa that uses a very special mechanism for collecting water. As you see in the picture, the back of the beetle comprises a random array of half a millimeter diameter bumps spaced half to 1 millimeters apart. The bumps are smooth, while the surrounding area is covered with microstructured wax. Water from the fog lands on the bumps and droplets begin to form and grow in size. The droplets continue to grow, let's say, up to approximately 5 millimeters until their weight overcomes the capillary force and the droplet detaches and rolls down the tilted beetle's back using gravity. The bumps are found to be hydrophilic, while the background wax is of hydrophilic material. Facade modules inspired by the Namib desert beetle are designed with peaks and troughs under the surface to help retain water molecules in the air. The bumps will be coated with hydrophilic nanocoating to absorb air humidity, while the depressed areas will be coated with hydrophobic nanocoating to repel and guide the water to the desired destination. Inspired again by nature, the geometry of the modules and water gutters was designed. The collected moisture-turned water will be guided to a water tank through these gutters. Here you can see a quick animation on how the design actually works. But we wanted to make this design even more efficient. A few years back, I was lucky enough to have an amazing experience. It was my first time traveling to a desert where I was looking forward to feeling the hot sun rays and the burning sand. But very surprisingly, it started raining very hard. So we asked the locals around, and they told us that it was indeed a rare sight to see rain here. So you can probably imagine that their homes were not designed for collecting or even withstanding the rain. And that's when we thought what a waste it would be to let something so precious pass by while we should take it for granted. So here sparked the idea. In order to collect water from both humidity and rainfall conditions, we designed the modules so they could be adjustable according to the optimal rainfall angle of every region. As you can see, the modules can be rotated around the vertical axis and be used in different angles to collect rainfall. And finally, how do we plan to use this water? We're all aware that part of every building's water usage is mainly used to maintain thermal comfort, to add moisture to the inner environment, or to be used by heating or cooling devices. In hot, arid regions, humidification is the key to reach thermal comfort conditions. Here, we propose smart sensors to monitor and record indoor temperature and humidity rates. The sensors will be connected to water tanks technology, so when mean inner humidity decreases a certain level outside the thermal comfort area, adequate amount of water stored in tanks will be distributed using cool mist humidification systems. But is this technology only applicable to hot areas? Well, for cold and humid regions, we suggest that the water tanks be replaced by passive trump walls to help inner conditions reach thermal comfort and desired temperature levels. Conclusion: this project aims to be applied to buildings with different purposes in all climates around the world. And last but not least, an issue that must be addressed is the decision upon the material used to create the modules. Although the initially proposed material for the project, according to previous research on fog catchers, is polypropylene, yet more research and experiments will be necessary to decide upon the material used to create them. This project works in cooperation with the Neurotecture team, a subgroup at TakeLab Laboratory, a research team focused on well-being and healthy built environment through different dimensions and aspects of architecture. With their help, we will be capable of connecting our water management design to IoT technology and applying their experience and expertise on digital fabrication. We will be able to put the design into practice. All in all, instead of using water to produce technology, we strive to use technology to produce water, or at least harvest it. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed for that. And I think for any viewers who are not familiar with this Water Research Prize, you'll understand why we get so excited about it, and I think you'll see why Grower have been excited about it in the first instance, enough to get it launched. There is a research prize of, I think, 10,000 euros. And as we've seen from that presentation, it's not a prize for people who've resolved all questions. It's really to promote further research into a promising, intriguing and creative idea, which, as you've seen, could affect remote communities, sophisticated communities, or in this instance, an idea which may be applicable in many, many different contexts. And Jeremy, from your experience as a university teacher and a visiting professor, I think this is one of the things about research which is sometimes misunderstood, that actually it's speculative.
I think that's absolutely right, that when you start a piece of research, you by definition don't know where it's going to end. You might have some experience, you might have some hopes and wishes for how it will unfold, but in the end, it's doing the work that tells you where it's leading. And that's, in a sense, why it's like a design project. When you start a design project, your client may say it has to do this, and planners may say it has to do that, and of course you as a designer have to work to that, but you don't actually know how it's going to achieve it. And this is why design and research, which some universities find very hard to say in the same sentence, are actually very closely aligned. And I think it's why this prize is so important, for us at WAF, but also for architecture in general.
And I should say, and I'll ask Patrick to comment on this, I mean, when we judge the proposals coming in, I mean, we don't have the benefit of the sort of delightful presentation we've just seen. It's a bit more prosaic than that. It's a statement about what the project is, how the money would be used, which is then followed by for the last 2 years, a virtual discussion amongst the judges. I think, having seen this presentation, Patrick, this is just an example of a really great project, which is what the prize is all about.
Absolutely. So it's again, it puts us in the very beginning in a very abstract position, because we are reading the project descriptions, and we are within the jury, we are discussing a lot about that. We're making these assumptions into it, but that really caught our attention since the very beginning. And again, as you, and also the way that Jeremy pointed out, so the way that it links into, again, is the methodology that is behind it. So like again, so how designers and architects work with the research phase. I think before getting into that one point that is very important, I think you mentioned. So that's the reason why also we are here supporting the WAF prize. It's because of that the level of curiosity, the experimentation and learning, which is one of the behaviors of Grow and Lixo as a company, is to really encourage us to go there, be curious, and really put the hours into work to bring again kind of a innovative and solutions like that. And I think this is in one point when we bring that into our design team, the way that we work back at Lixo and at Groa, it's a lot about what we call the pre-search. The pre-search is that even like that moment before the research what we're doing, we were kind of in a way of finding the theme. You were finding you go and you put yourself into the field, the observation, again finding ways to that we can kind of bring ideas to life. And again, so the way that they found out and got inspired by nature, I think biomimicry in its best possible way, right? Again, it's been proven also to be such a powerful discipline nowadays, also because again, it kind of just kind of follows the way nature do things, which again is a very much of a sustainable way. And this is, I think, it's a beautiful way for us to follow this path moving forward.
And Stefan, I've often been struck by the relationship between anything to do with manufacturing and water. It's an automatic relationship between the man-made and the natural, and the way that the one might influence the other in terms of, let's say, for example, quantity or speed of flow or channeling or storage. And on the other hand, the nature of the natural material, which determines what it is that the man-made can actually, the way in which the man-made can operate. There's this kind of an immediate interaction between artificial and natural.
No, I think what you point out is exactly why we chose that. We had many good actually projects that we looked at, but I think this project really came on top somehow because, as you said, it covers all. It covers water as a precious resource. It takes, as you said, nature, the surface, the shape. This Navi desert beetle as an example, which I think was excellent. It uses, as you also mentioned, internal and external structure from the building, collecting water outside, but then also using it inside with this cool mist idea, which I really liked. Then finally also somehow bringing this whole topic of innovation that maybe the projects we also chose in the years before, it's now more IoT, nanotechnology. It has a more technology approach, which is also very interesting for us. And so from that, as you said, it's a well-rounded project. I think it has a project idea. And I also have to say personally, of course, knowing Iran quite well, I'm traveling there at least twice a year, 3 times a year. So I've been there many times. I've been to Shiraz as well, let's say the resting place of Hafiz, the great poet, right? So I will come and visit personally to see how you advance with the project. Be sure, I make sure that these 10,000 are well spent. So be aware. So so seriously, I think it's really a good idea because also knowing very well the architecture that is in Iran, be it Esfahan or Shiraz, also got all these cities. That's something that makes actually sense in a way of how you can use or solve or find a solution, especially in a country like Iran, for example. So that's why I think this project really hits the nail right on the head.
Thank you. Well, I'd like to ask the design team, would you like to comment on the nature of collaboration? You've mentioned people you may be working with, but perhaps say something about the impetus for this project, where it came from. Was it because of discussion with different groups of people, or did somebody have an idea because they'd seen something about the extraordinary beetle and its surface geometries. Tell us a little bit about how it started and the extent to which collaboration is important to you.
Yes, thank you all for your kindness and consideration. I must say that we all kind of cooperate with the neurotexture team. So we all have a background on how biological and neurological aspects of creatures work. So it wasn't a very hard thing to come up with. Not hard, I should say. It was familiar to us. So it was a cooperation between all of us. At first, we were thinking about how neurological aspects of human being and other creatures in deserts and places in the world that doesn't have enough water work, and then it led us to biological aspects and biomimicry. I hope I answered your question.
Yes, thank you very much, because I want to bring Jeremy Melvin back in on this, because of course this is a very sophisticated project because it's involving nanotechnology, especially in the development of a potential material. And nanotechnology is something that you curated an exhibition that dealt with this subject some years ago, and what the implications of nanotechnology might mean in all sorts of aspects of the design and construction process.
Well, yes, the exhibition was called Less Does More, which was obviously an inversion of Mies van der Rohe's famous dictum of less is more. I wanted to make a more active statement that even the smallest interventions can be really, really influential and can change whole ways of thinking. We represented in that ideas about protocells, which are almost artificially created life. I think the scientists who work with protocells resist that they are actually living organisms, but they are programmed to behave a bit like living organisms. One of the things, though, that really interests me about this particular project is the number of technologies involved, from the simple physics of how water responds, which we've heard about already, that water does certain things, it will always respond to gravity, it will flow at certain speeds, it will has certain characteristics which are very difficult to change for good reasons. But then, so this works to some extent with water and its relationship with gravity, because as you were describing, the droplets of water that form on the beetle's back, when they get big enough, they're heavy enough to drop down and be caught. And that's, I think, what your facade does as well on a bigger scale. But there's also, I think, the idea of neuroscience working in here, which is one of the most sophisticated emerging scientific discourses, which is beginning to have a huge influence on architecture. So I think in terms of bringing together different sorts of scientific understanding, this is a really significant project. And to me, that is what design does. It brings together different technologies that don't necessarily speak to each other in their academic cells.
It's interesting the broader relationship between the natural world and architecture is something which was, I mean, he's not forgotten, but when he was doing this work back in the 1960s, it was considered so far out that it was, I think, quite wrongly, rather dismissed at the time. I'm talking about the bioclimatic architecture that Ken Yang, a Malaysian architect who studied at Cambridge. And Ken was really ploughed a rather lonely furrow, saying that we need to combine architecture and construction and the natural world in the form of planting plants inside and outside buildings as climate moderators or contributors to air purification. Those ideas now, I think, are broadly being taken on, but we're now moving to rather new levels of sophistication, where it's not just yes, let's have roof terraces, let's have as much nature planted in and on a building as would have existed on the ground plane if the building wasn't there, and that's become not so uncommon. I think what we've seen in this project is several steps further on, which is actually taking ideas from nature to inform potentially very specific aspects of design and production and material innovation.
I think that's absolutely right. And of course, Ken, I think you're right. Ken Yang was ploughing a very lonely furrow when he started with this. I think, though, his work has borne fruit. Quite a lot of what he says would now, as you say, be recognised as almost as received wisdom, which is not in any way to denigrate what he does. It's just that it has become obvious. Part of the reason it's become obvious is because of the way scientific research has progressed. And I think we understand much more now about how plants work, how small animals like beetles work than we did even 20 or 30 years ago. And we're also, through neuroscience, beginning to understand more about how the brain works than we did before. Now, all of these, I think, are really important, really interesting fuel for designers to work with.
I think the idea of the droplet, I immediately thought, actually, don't grower put a lot of time and effort into making sure that their shower heads do not have droplets gradually dripping enough to turn into a sea, to sort of exploit that phrase. Patrick, you are interested in the minutiae of engineering design and its interaction with H2O.
Yeah, absolutely. You just mentioned one of our technologies that is a drip stop that is in our head showers, in our recent hand shower called Smart Active as well. It's just, again, we need to defy gravity in this case, right? Because as you mentioned, so the water is there and it's going to fall. But somehow we work very close to our engineers to make sure that this sort of I would say water waste will kind of not happen. And again, and I think one of the points that is very important for us to keep in mind is that, especially when we try to trace a parallel, is okay, how does it work in a big corporation, in a big company such as Growa? But this is what you mentioned. It is very important, so that we do not work in silos, but instead we work together, exchanging, sharing information, and I think this is where we bring the functions together. We have the technology, we have the consumer research, we have the design. So we have this intersection that I always call this the sweet spot, where these functions they get together. That we find the relevant innovation path to bring something that is going to be really, I would say, meaningful to transform that into products. So I think this is the beauty of again getting the teams working in a solution, but in fact the solution has a meaning. So there's a reason why to be there. So in the past we always discussed that we are not the big fans of sometimes the technology for the sake of technology. So, but it works if it has a purpose behind. And I think what the team kind of has shown it here, and I think the points that you mentioned before about the way that we try to emulate sometimes nature out, and the way that we need to bring principles that happen in the ecosystem, and okay, how can we bring that and adapt that into a need? And I think this is a very good way of working, and something that really it's embedded and also in our way of cross-functioning work within the teams inside of the industry.
And on Stefan, on this point about cross-collaboration and not working in silos, I was very struck years ago when I went to see the Big Grow factory just outside Dusseldorf and talked to the design team, and the culture of the company had clearly evolved over the years from being fundamentally an engineering manufacturing company which required design as a sort of completion of the project, to almost a reversal where it was the fundamentals of design and design technology influenced by that engineering understanding, which then took the lead. And I'm wondering if you'd like to say something about that, because these ebbs and flows between one part of a company and another part, depending on technology and finance and economics and the market and customer demand, I think is endlessly fascinating. Would you like to say something about this, the non-silo approach?
No, I think we agree that we look at things always very holistically, and that's why I also have somebody from design like Patrick sitting here and somebody more from the commercial side like me. And I think what comes, where it comes all together, and I think I like also to take reference to what you said, Paul, but what some of our demands are is also make things scalable. So it can be small things that we then can make basically scalable. That's one thing. And how do we get there? And I think from the 3 core values that also Lixil has is experiment and learn. And I think that always comes with it, so that we try to experiment, learn, put different things together and basically create something new. And I think it's also important from that perspective, technology and design. And we also talked about the water triplets. I think it's also important to understand that with these designs and technologies, they're not just for that, it's always for the end user. So for us, it's always the experience that an end user, for example, in a shower has. So how do you bring now together the technology of water saving, lowering water consumption, but not risking that basically the shower experience is wrong? So there are all these different aspects from design. How do you save water? How do you optimize then the whole shower experience, and then also how you communicate and sell it in the market? So as said, for us, all these different facets that we have in our company are actually well integrated. And I think, as you pointed out, we are actually having in Hemer, that's near Düsseldorf, that is excellent factory. So I also invite everybody who wants to visit us to drop you a line as soon as traveling is allowed again. Everybody's welcome.
Thank you very much. We have just a few minutes remaining, but I'd like to turn back to the design team, if I may, and ask you about how you feel that if you like, the politics of water or cultural approaches to water, do you see them changing in any of the geographies that you've looked at? Because your ambition is admirable, that your ideas may be applicable in different ways in very different climates and geographies. Do you have any feelings about the attitudes that you perceive in different geographies and cultures to water itself?
Yeah, constantly we are seeing that the climate change is the concern of everybody. And right now in Iran, we are facing drought. So in every aspect of the country. And for example, in Europe or in North America, that they are concerned about the rising of the sea level. But as I'm saying that right now in Iran, we have shortage of water. So we wanted to somehow that this design to control and provide water for every possible region and climate.
Thank you very much. And but your focus isn't only on Iran, because I think the presentation made clear that this is an idea which is very adaptable to different locations.
Yes, exactly. It can be implemented in every region, whether it's in a high humidity or in a low humidity, it is adaptable to every kind of climate. It's high. Certainly, the more the water will be collected, and if it's low, then it will adapt itself. Yeah.
Well, I think I'm going to draw things to a close by just asking the judges to perhaps to make one final comment of what they've seen, what we've been talking about, and perhaps something about hopes for the future. Stefan, would you like to kick us off? Anything you'd like to add to what's been said?
I said that for me, really, what came out is this link between using nature and putting that into practice. That was for me really the key, the killer argument in the end, which I really loved on that project.
Thank you, Patrick.
Yeah, from getting back to the project for me was again an innovative way to tackle the water scarcity problem, because we have seen like in several different ways, but this way was very much of an innovative way. And I think the biomimicry aspect of this, I think that Stefan pointed out, getting nature again, when nature meets technology, so like in a very meaningful way. And I think again, it's an innovative idea, so it's a scalable. And again, we can replicate it in not only in the hot and warm weathers, but also kind of trying to bring that in terms of like a much broader, I would say, kind of a footprint than what we saw it here.
Thank you very much. And Jeremy?
Well, I would like to emphasize the point about innovation. But I think what this project shows is design at its best by going back to fundamentals, by understanding principles of physics, principles of nature, but being able to work imaginatively with them. And that's what I would like to see in more submissions in the future. And I think if anyone's thinking of submitting something, please do so, because I think we've made clear that we take a very broad view of what this prize can be about.
Thank you. So really to sum up, first congratulations again to the Iranian team who produced this really stimulating idea. And as you've heard the comments of the judges, we were very taken by the thoughtful approach, but I think really the inspiration you've taken from nature itself, and then that sort of pre-search that you've done to investigate, well, what should the next bit of research be to make something which is applicable in a built environment and architectural context. No doubt, potentially not merely using kind of micro design, but also investigating appropriate materials that can be used in the task ahead. I think from the point of view of World Architecture Festival, we'd like to thank very much Grower, firstly for really inaugurating and initiating this prize, and looking back on the winners to date, they've been very different, but I think what they've had in common is a almost relentless optimism of the role that design can play in addressing major issues, even if you're doing it at a small local scale or at a small technology scale, because it is, after all, from little acorns that mighty oak trees go. We're going to end our session here. Thanks to everybody. The next presentation this afternoon in London will be in about 10 minutes' time. But for the moment, thank you very much and good afternoon.